At 11:07 on a Thursday night, someone knocked on my door like the sound itself was trying not to wake the whole street. 3 soft taps, a pause, then one more. I was in my kitchen, barefoot, eating cold leftover lasagna over the sink because, at 34 years old, I had apparently become a man who owned real plates, but didn't always believe in using them. The rain had started an hour earlier, that steady October rain that made the windows look black and made every house on my block feel like it was holding its breath. I almost ignored the knock. Then I heard a woman's voice through the door. "Mason?" I froze with the fork halfway to my mouth, because I knew that voice. Not from a bad memory exactly, from a complicated one. I set the fork down, crossed the living room, and looked through the peephole. Claire Whitaker stood on my porch in a camel coat soaked dark at the shoulders, one hand wrapped around the handle of a small suitcase, her silver blonde hair pinned badly like she had done it in a moving car. She was my ex-fiancée's mother, and she looked like the kind of woman who had held herself together for everyone else until there was no one left watching. I opened the door. "Claire?" Her eyes lifted to mine. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she gave me a smile that barely made it past her mouth and whispered, "I didn't know where else to go." That was how my life changed. Not with fireworks, not with some dramatic confession in the rain. Just a beautiful, exhausted woman standing on my porch with a suitcase, looking at me like I was both a mistake and her last good option. I stepped back. "Come in." She hesitated. That was Claire. Even falling apart, she had manners. "Mason, I shouldn't—" "You're dripping on my porch," I said. "And I just paid a guy too much money to repaint it." Her mouth twitched. "Still charming, I see." "Only after 10 p.m. Before that, I'm mostly invoices and sawdust." That got half a laugh out of her, and it did something strange to my chest. I hadn't seen Claire in almost 2 years. Not since Lauren handed me back the engagement ring in the parking lot behind the rehearsal dinner venue and told me she loved me, just not enough to marry me. For the record, there are cleaner ways to end a relationship. A text message, for example. A carrier pigeon. A tasteful smoke signal. Anything other than doing it while your mother is inside, arguing with the florist about centerpieces. Claire had found me 20 minutes later sitting on a curb behind the building, my tie loose, my pride somewhere under a parked Honda. She hadn't said anything dramatic. She just sat beside me in her blue dress and handed me a napkin. "You're allowed to be angry," she'd said. I told her I didn't want to be angry. She looked straight ahead and said, "Then be hurt." That's honest too. I never forgot that. Now she stood in my hallway, water running off her coat onto the rug, trying to pretend she hadn't come to me because something in her life had cracked open. I took her suitcase. She let me, but only after one stubborn little tug that reminded me she was not a woman who surrendered easily. "I can put you in the guest room," I said. "I'm not staying. You brought luggage. It's a small suitcase." "Claire." She looked at me. The hallway light caught the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the rain on her lashes, the pale curve of her throat above the collar of her blouse. She was 51, though she had the kind of presence that made age feel like the least interesting thing about her. She looked like a woman who had lived, decided, regretted, laughed anyway, and still knew how to walk into a room without asking permission. And yes, I noticed. I had always noticed. Back then, noticing had been something I locked behind 10 doors and called respect. She was Lauren's mother. I was engaged. Claire was married in name only to a man who showed up to family events smelling like bourbon and old excuses. But 2 years had passed. Lauren and I were strangers now. Claire had been divorced for 8 months if the neighborhood grapevine had been accurate. And she was standing in my house at 11 at night looking at me like I was the one person she trusted not to turn her pain into gossip. That mattered. Maybe too much. "I'll make tea," I said, because apparently when life got emotionally dangerous, I became a British grandmother. Claire glanced toward the kitchen. "Do you still burn water?" "I've matured. I only scorch it now." She followed me in, and the smallness of my kitchen made her presence impossible to ignore. She took off her coat, and underneath she wore a cream blouse tucked into dark slacks, both rumpled in a way that felt too intimate. Not messy. Human, I handed her a towel. Her fingers brushed mine. It was nothing. It was skin, damp and warm, a second of contact. Still, she noticed me noticing. Her eyes narrowed softly. Don't look at me like that. I turned toward the kettle. Like what? Like I'm something you have to fix. I looked back. She was standing near the counter, towel in both hands, chin lifted. Proud even now, especially now. I wasn't, I said. No? No. Then how are you looking at me? That question hung between us longer than it should have. The rain filled the silence. I should have made a joke. I was good at jokes. Jokes were little doors you could close before anyone saw too much. But Claire's eyes were tired, and I didn't want to hide from her. Like I'm glad you came here, I said. Her expression changed. Not much, just enough. Oh, she whispered. The kettle clicked off behind me. Neither of us moved. Then she looked down at the towel and gave a small, embarrassed laugh. That was not the answer I was prepared for. What were you prepared for? Something noble, something safe. She met my eyes again. You were always very good at safe. That landed harder than I expected, because it was true. With Lauren, I had been safe, reliable, useful. The man who fixed the sink, picked up prescriptions, remembered her mother's birthday, and pretended not to notice when his fiancée slowly stopped reaching for his hand. Claire had seen it before I had. Maybe that was why having her in my kitchen felt less like a surprise and more like a door I had been standing near for years without admitting it existed. I poured the tea. What happened tonight? Claire wrapped both hands around the mug I gave her, though she didn't drink. Her nails were painted pale pink. One was chipped. That detail stupidly made me want to touch her hand. Instead, I leaned against the opposite counter. Distance. Respect. Sanity. Pick one and hold on. She took a breath. Lauren had dinner at my house. My stomach tightened automatically. Lauren? Even after 2 years, her name still knew where the bruise was. Is she okay? I asked. Claire gave me a look. It wasn't cruel, it was almost amused. You still ask that first? I spent 4 years asking that first. I know. Her voice softened. It's one of the things I liked about you. Liked, not appreciated, not respected. Liked. I hated how much I heard the difference. Claire looked into her mug. She's engaged again. I blinked. Oh, you didn't know? No. I thought she would have told you. We don't talk. Smart man. That surprised a laugh out of me. Claire smiled into her tea, and for 1 second, the room warmed. Then the smile faded. She invited me over to tell me. Her fiancé was there. So was his mother. It was all very civilized until Lauren decided honesty was a party favor. I set my mug down. What does that mean? Claire's shoulders tightened. She said I had no right to judge her choices when I'd spent years making poor ones of my own. That's not exactly a shocking mother-daughter argument. No, Claire's voice dropped. Then she said my worst choice was you. I stared at her. For a moment, the rain seemed louder. Me? Claire closed her eyes briefly, like she could still hear the words being spoken in that room. She said I made you feel more wanted than she ever did. My pulse changed. Not sped up exactly, changed. Like it had found a rhythm it had been waiting for. Claire looked at me, and there was shame in her face now, but also defiance. I told her that was unfair. Was it? Her lips parted. I shouldn't have asked. But the question was already there, alive between us. Claire took 1 step closer to the counter between us. Mason! My phone buzzed on the table. We both looked down. Lauren's name lit the screen. I hadn't seen it there in almost 2 years. The message preview was short enough to read before I could stop myself. Is my mother there? Don't be stupid. She's been in love with you since before the wedding. Claire saw it too. All the color left her face. And then, in a voice so small it didn't sound like hers, she said, Please don't read the rest. I turned my phone face down. Claire stared at it like it might bite. You don't want to know? She asked. I want a lot of things, I said. Doesn't mean Lauren gets to hand them to me like a lit match. Claire let out a breath that trembled at the end. I hated that tremble. not because it made her seem weak. Claire Whitaker couldn't look weak if she tried. It bothered me because I wanted to be close enough to feel it against my chest. Instead, I stayed where I was for about 3 heroic seconds. Then I crossed the kitchen. She didn't step back. That was the first thing. Her eyes lifted to mine, wary and bright, but her body stayed exactly where it was, as if some quiet part of her had been waiting to see whether I would come nearer. "I'm not reading it," I said. "You should." "Why?" "Because you deserve the truth. From you, maybe." I looked down at her, not from someone using it to hurt both of us. Her fingers tightened around the mug. The steam curled between us, smelling like chamomile and rain. Claire gave a fragile smile. "You always did know how to make a woman feel responsibly handled." I almost laughed. "That sounds terrible." "It was meant to." "Good." "For a second, I thought you were flirting." Her eyebrow lifted. There she was. Under the soaked coat, the shaking hands, the woman who had knocked on my door with nowhere else to go, there was still Claire. Sharp, elegant, dangerous when amused. "And if I was?" she asked. The question hit the room like lightning without thunder. My mouth went dry. "Then I'd say you're choosing a very unstable moment to test my self-control." Her gaze dropped to my mouth. Briefly. Not briefly enough. "Mason," she said, softer now, "my daughter just accused me of being in love with the man she left at the altar. Technically, it was the night before." Do not make me laugh right now. I think laughing is allowed. I think if I laugh, I may start crying. Then I'll risk it. She shook her head, but her lips curved. I reached for the mug. "Give me that before you spill it." Our hands touched again. This time neither of us pretended not to notice. Her fingers were cold. I set the mug aside and before I could overthink myself into cowardice, took both her hands in mine. Claire went still. The kitchen felt suddenly too small, too warm, too honest. "I need to ask you something," I said. She swallowed. "All right. Did you come here because Lauren said that?" "No." Her answer was immediate. "I came here because when she said it, I realized I wanted it to be true." My heart kicked once, hard. Claire's eyes filled, but she did not look away. "I hated myself for that," she whispered. For years. I told myself it was fondness, gratitude, maybe loneliness. You were kind to me when kindness was not something I got much of at home. I knew about her marriage in the way outsiders know about a house with covered windows. You don't see the whole room. You just know the lights are never on." She continued, voice unsteady but determined. "And then Lauren hurt you and I was furious with her. Not only because she had been cruel, but because some awful selfish part of me thought, now he's free? And I have never forgiven myself for that thought. I should have said something sensible, something like, you were under stress, something like, feelings are complicated. Instead, I said the truth. I noticed you too." Claire's breath caught. The rain tapped at the glass. "I tried not to," I said. "I was engaged to your daughter. You were married. There were about 9 moral guardrails and a brick wall in the way. And now there's history, and Lauren, and the part where you're standing in my kitchen at midnight looking like trouble in silk." Her laugh broke loose then, small and wet and surprised. "I'm not wearing silk." "I'm a carpenter, Claire. If it's not denim, I'm guessing." That did it. She laughed for real, and the sound eased something in me I hadn't known was clenched. Then she stepped closer. Just one step. But her knees brushed mine and suddenly all my careful distance was gone. "I don't want to be a scandal," she said. "You're not. I'm older than you. I can count. By 17 years. I can subtract too. This isn't funny." "No," I said, squeezing her hands. "It isn't." Her expression softened. "I don't want to be some reaction," she whispered. "To Lauren, to being hurt, to being lonely." "You're not." "You don't know that." I know I opened the door and felt like the last 2 years had been waiting on my porch. Claire stared at me like I had reached inside her ribs and touched something no one was supposed to touch. Then she moved. Not dramatically. Not like women in movies who fling themselves into destiny. She simply leaned forward and rested her forehead against my chest. I stopped breathing. Her hands were still in mine, trapped between us. Her hair smelled faintly like rain and lavender shampoo. I could feel every careful breath she took. This was more intimate than a kiss would have been. This was trust. I let go of one hand and lifted mine to the back of her head, barely touching, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. "I'm tired," she said against me. I know. I'm tired of being admired for surviving things. My throat tightened. "What do you want instead?" Her answer came after a long silence. "I want to be wanted before I have to be brave." My hand stilled in her hair. That was it. That was the sentence that undid me. I bent my head until my mouth was near her temple. "Then let me want you." She shivered. Not from cold. "Mason, I'm not asking for anything tonight," I said. "I'm not asking you to decide your whole life in my kitchen. But don't ask me to pretend I don't want you. I'm done being safe if safe means lying." She pulled back enough to look at me. Her eyes were wet. Her mouth was close. Too close. Not close enough. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "Me neither." That's not comforting. I build custom cabinets for people who change their minds after installation. I'm excellent at complicated. Her smile returned, shaky and beautiful. Then her gaze lowered again. This time, I didn't move. If there was going to be a line crossed, she had to choose it too. Claire rose onto her toes and kissed the corner of my mouth. Soft, brief, devastating. When she pulled back, she looked almost angry with herself. I caught her hand before she could retreat completely. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Punish yourself for wanting something." Her eyes flashed. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple." I brushed my thumb over her knuckles. "But it can be honest." The phone buzzed again on the table. Once, twice. Then it began to ring. Lauren. Claire closed her eyes. I reached over and silenced it without looking. Then I held the phone up between two fingers. "Guest room, tea, dry clothes, and in the morning we deal with whatever version of outrage your daughter has prepared." Claire studied me. "And tonight?" "Tonight," I said, "you sit on my couch with me, eat terrible lasagna, and tell me one thing about yourself that has nothing to do with being anyone's mother." Her face changed at that, like I'd offered her a country she had forgotten she was allowed to visit. "All right," she said softly. We sat on the couch under the old quilt my grandmother made, close enough for our shoulders to touch. I reheated the lasagna. She claimed it was edible, which was generous and possibly flirtatious. After 10 quiet minutes, she said, "I wanted to be a photographer." I looked at her. "You never told me that." "You never asked." "I'm asking now." Claire smiled down at her plate. Then, slowly, she leaned her shoulder into mine. I didn't move away. Neither did she. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, with Lauren's unread messages waiting in the dark kitchen, Claire reached under the quilt and laced her fingers through mine. I did not sleep much. Not because Claire was in the guest room. Because Claire was in the guest room wearing one of my old flannel shirts. There are tests of character, and then there is hearing the woman you have wanted against all reason padding barefoot down your hallway at 2:13 a.m. to get water. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling like a man negotiating with God. In the morning, I found her in my kitchen before sunrise. She had made coffee. Bad coffee. Coffee so aggressive it might have been used to strip varnish. She stood at the counter, wrapped in the flannel, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking softer than I had any right to see her. My shirt hung to mid-thigh, her legs were bare. I stopped in the doorway. Claire glanced over. Don't say it." "I haven't said anything." "You're thinking it." "I'm thinking several things." Her mouth curved. "Are any of them suitable for breakfast conversation?" "Not with that coffee." She looked into her mug. "It's strong. It has a criminal record." A laugh escaped her, and just like that, the kitchen belonged to us again. Not to Lauren's messages, not to old guilt. Us. I crossed to the counter and took the mug from her hand. "Sit, I'll make something survivable." "You're very bossy in the morning." You're wearing my shirt in my kitchen. I'm improvising. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Claire went still. Then she looked down at herself as if suddenly remembering what she had on. A blush rose along her throat. I can change. Don't. Her eyes lifted. There it was again. That charged silence. That narrow bridge between what we were allowed to want and what we were brave enough to admit. I set the mug down. Claire, I said, you don't have to hide from me this morning. Her expression trembled at the edges. I'm not hiding. No. I'm recalibrating. That sounds expensive. It usually is. I stepped closer, slowly enough that she could stop me. She didn't. I reached out and folded the flannel cuff back from her wrist. My fingers brushed her skin. Her breath caught just a little. I liked waking up knowing you were here, I said. Her eyes softened. So did I. That was all. 4 words, but they felt like a door opening wider. The doorbell rang at 7:22. Claire flinched. I looked through the front window and saw Lauren on my porch in a camel coat almost identical to her mother's. Her blonde hair smooth, her jaw set like she had come prepared to win. She's here, I said. Claire closed her eyes. Of course she is. You don't have to talk to her. Yes, I do. She straightened. But not in your shirt. I disagree on principle, but I'll wait. She shot me a look. Mason. There's the mom voice. There is also the woman who kissed you last night voice, and she is warning you not to be smug. My entire body remembered that kiss. Noted. Claire changed into her clothes while Lauren kept ringing the bell like the house was on fire. When Claire came back, she looked composed again, but I noticed her hands. They shook. I took one before she reached the door. She looked down at our joined fingers. If I open this, I said, it's because you want me to. Not because I think you need rescuing. Her gaze warmed. Thank you. And after she leaves, I'm taking you out. That startled her. Out? Breakfast, a real one. Somewhere with coffee that hasn't committed assault. Mason. A date, Claire. Her lips parted. Outside, Lauren rang again. I didn't care. I kept my eyes on Claire. Not because of her, not because of last night, because I want to sit across from you in daylight and ask about photography and watch you pretend not to steal my toast. Her smile came slowly, like sunrise. I don't steal toast. You look like a toast thief. I look dignified. You look devastating. Her smile faded into something quieter. Then yes, she said. A date. Only then did I open the door. Lauren stood on the porch with her phone in one hand and anger in every line of her face. Her eyes moved from me to her mother, then down to our hands. We had not let go. Oh, wow, Lauren said. So it's true. Claire's fingers tightened around mine, but her voice was calm. Good morning, Lauren. Don't good morning me. You left my house like I'd attacked you. You humiliated me in front of strangers. My fiancé and his mother are not strangers. To me, they are. Lauren laughed once, sharp and humorless. This is unbelievable. Him? Really? I felt Claire shift beside me. For years, I'd known Lauren's anger. It was beautiful in a cold way, precise and polished. It used to make me apologize, even when I didn't know what I'd done. This time, I didn't. Claire said, You don't get to ask that like Mason is something beneath me. Lauren blinked. So did I. Claire stepped half in front of me, not to protect me, but to choose me visibly. Yeah, his kind, she said. He is funny. He listens. He makes terrible lasagna and somehow worse tea, and he has spent years being treated like a consolation prize when he is not one. My throat tightened. Lauren's face flushed. Mom. No, Claire said. You're angry because I came here, not because I did something wrong. And I came here because when my life fell apart, Mason was the one person I trusted to be gentle with it. The porch went silent except for the rainwater dripping from the gutters. Lauren looked at me then, and for the first time in 2 years, I saw something like regret. Mason, I didn't mean... Yes, you did, I said. Her mouth closed. I'm not saying that to punish you, but you meant enough. Last night, before the wedding, all of it. She swallowed. Claire's thumb moved over mine, a small stroke that anchored me. I'm sorry, Lauren said, but it sounded like the word surprised her. Thank you, I said, but this isn't about us anymore. Lauren's eyes flicked to our hands again. It's about my mother dating my ex-fiancée. Not yet, Claire said. I looked at her. Her chin lifted. We have breakfast first. Despite everything, I smiled. Lauren stared between us like she had walked into a language she didn't speak. This will be a disaster, she said quietly. Claire's face softened, not surrendering, but grieving the daughter she loved and could not obey. Maybe, she said, but it will be my disaster to choose. Lauren left 5 minutes later. There were no slammed doors, no threats, just a strained, brittle silence as she walked back to her car. When I shut the door, Claire stood very still in the entryway. Then she turned to me. I'm shaking, she said. I know. I hated that. I know. And I still want breakfast. Something in my chest loosened into joy. Good. She stepped closer. But first, her hand rose to my jaw. I went completely still. Claire smiled, nervous and certain at the same time. I kissed you like an apology last night. I'd like to try again without apologizing. I touched her waist. I'm in favor of this plan. She kissed me. Not the corner of my mouth this time. My mouth. Soft at first, then deeper when I pulled her closer, and she made a small sound that ruined every careful thought I had left. Her hands slid up my chest and mine settled at her waist, holding her like something chosen, not sheltered. When we broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine. I'm still scared, she whispered. Me too. That helps? A little. She laughed, breathless. Then she took my hand and tugged me toward the kitchen. Feed me, Mason. Yes, ma'am. And don't call me ma'am on our date. Noted. She paused, glancing back with a spark in her eyes. Unless I ask nicely. I nearly walked into the wall. We went to a diner on Maple Street because romance, I decided, should begin somewhere with cracked vinyl booths and syrup dispensers shaped like tiny glass grenades. Claire slid into the booth across from me and looked around. This is where you take all your scandalous older women? Only the ones who insult my tea. I did not insult it. I feared it. A waitress named Dot came over, took one look at us, and smiled, like she had been waiting 30 years for something interesting to happen before 9 a.m. Coffee? Yes, Claire said quickly, real coffee. Dot poured, glanced between us, and said, You two look guilty. Claire coughed into her cup. I leaned back. We're on a first date. Dot's eyebrows went up. Claire's eyes flew to mine. I held her gaze. No apology, no flinch, no hiding in the safe shadow of maybe. A slow warmth bloomed in her face. Dot grinned. Well, I'll bring extra napkins. First dates are messy. When she left, Claire stared at me over her coffee. You said that very easily. It wasn't hard. It should be. Why? Because people will talk. People talk when my neighbor puts inflatable reindeer on his roof in July. People are unreliable narrators. She smiled, despite herself. You have an answer for everything. No, just for the parts that try to scare you away. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. I wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, but this was daylight. Public. Her choice mattered more here somehow. So I waited. Claire looked at my hand resting near the sugar packets. Then she reached across and covered it with hers. My heart did an embarrassingly young thing. There, she said softly. Before I lose my nerve. I turned my hand over and laced our fingers together. Her thumb brushed mine once, tentative, then again with more confidence. Tell me about photography, I said. She blinked, like no one had ever followed through on that request. Then she told me, not the neat version, the real one, how she used to skip class in college to take pictures of old train stations, how she loved portraits because faces betrayed what people tried to hide, how she married at 23 and sold her camera 2 years later when money got tight, then never bought another because there was always a daughter, a mortgage, a husband with emergencies bigger than her dreams. I sound pathetic, she said, looking down. No, I said. You sound overdue. Her eyes lifted. For what? For someone to ask what you want next. The question changed her. I watched it happen. Her mouth softened. Her shoulders lowered. Something cautious and hungry moved through her expression. What if I don't know? She asked. Then we start small. With breakfast? With breakfast, then a camera shop. She laughed. Mason. I'm serious. I can't let you buy me a camera on our first date. Fine. I'll let you hold cameras while I make comments like, this one matches your eyes. My eyes are not black and plastic. See? Good thing you'll be there. She was laughing when Dot brought pancakes, eggs, bacon, toast, and a look that said she had already planned our wedding colors. Halfway through breakfast, Claire stole my toast. I said nothing. She paused with it halfway to her mouth. What? You don't steal toast? Her eyes narrowed. This is evidence tampering. That is my toast. It was vulnerable. So, you admit it. She took a bite, slow and defiant, and I was gone. Completely gone. There are men who fall in love during grand gestures. Apparently, I was the kind who fell while a woman in dark slacks committed carbohydrate theft and looked elegant doing it. After breakfast, we walked 3 blocks to a little camera shop wedged between a florist and a law office. Claire stopped outside the window. Inside, old cameras sat on velvet stands like relics. She didn't move. You okay? I asked. I feel ridiculous. Why? Because I'm 51 years old and afraid to walk into a store. I stepped beside her, close enough that our shoulders touched. Then we don't go in. She looked at me. I thought you were going to push. I'll challenge you. I won't shove. Her eyes searched mine, and the trust there almost knocked me over. Then she took my hand. Challenge me. So we went in. For 40 minutes, I watched Claire come alive. She picked up cameras with reverence, asked questions, adjusted lenses, looked through viewfinders at the street outside, at the flower buckets next door. At me. Especially at me. At one point, she lowered the camera and smiled. What? I asked. You look different through a lens. Better or worse? Less guarded. I huffed. That's unfair. I'm extremely mysterious. You're a man who owns 3 identical gray t-shirts. Mysteriously identical. She lifted the camera again. Smile. No. Mason, I don't pose. You build cabinets for rich people who say things like farmhouse modern. You can survive one photograph. I sighed and looked at her, not the camera. Her smile faded slightly. Click. She lowered the camera. That one, she said quietly. I'd keep. My chest tightened. Then get the camera. Mason, I'm not buying it for you. You just said, I'm buying the first print. She stared at me. You buy the camera, I said. You take the picture, I get the first print. Fair trade. Her eyes went bright. She turned away fast, pretending to inspect a shelf of straps. I came up behind her, not touching, but close enough to speak near her ear. Claire. She breathed in. I like watching you want things. For a second, she didn't move. Then she reached back and found my hand without looking. I like that you notice, she whispered. She bought the camera. On the sidewalk afterward, she held the bag against her chest like it contained something fragile and newly born. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen and went pale. Lauren? I asked. She shook her head. Evan. Her ex-husband. The name landed cold between us. She didn't answer. The call stopped. A text followed. Claire read it, jaw tightening. What is it? She handed me the phone. You embarrassed Lauren. Whatever game you're playing with that carpenter, end it before you make the family look worse. I felt anger rise clean and hot. But before I could speak, Claire took the phone back and slipped it into her purse. No, she said. No? No, I am not giving him the rest of this date. Date. The words settled warmly in me. She stepped closer on the sidewalk, lifted one hand to my chest, and looked up at me with rain-colored eyes and a courage that shook a little but held. I spent 27 years letting that man decide when I was allowed to be happy, she said. Today, I bought a camera. I stole your toast, and I want you to kiss me in public. Everything in me went quiet. Then I cupped her face and kissed her, right there between the florist and the law office, with traffic hissing over wet pavement, and her camera bag pressed between us. She kissed me back like she was choosing the whole scandal in one breath. When we parted, she was smiling, a real smile. Mine. I'm going to text him back, she said. What are you going to say? She took out her phone, typed, and showed me before sending. I am not playing a game. I am on a date. Do not contact me again today. I grinned. Firm, elegant, terrifying. Thank you. She sent it. Then, as if to prove she meant every word, she took my hand and lifted the camera bag. Now, she said, take me somewhere beautiful. I want to photograph the man I'm not apologizing for. I took Claire to the old footbridge behind Briar Park. It wasn't famous, it wasn't grand. But in October, after rain, the creek ran silver beneath it, and the maple trees dropped red leaves onto the water like small, impossible boats. Claire stood in the middle of the bridge with her new camera in both hands. This is beautiful, she said. I know. She looked over. You're not looking at the creek. No. A blush touched her cheeks, but she didn't look away. That was new. Or maybe not new, maybe it had always been in her, buried under everyone else's expectations. She lifted the camera. Stand there. Where? By the railing. I obeyed, mostly because I was learning that Claire with a camera had the authority of a queen and the focus of a sniper. Stop smiling like that, she said. Like what? Like you're pleased with yourself. I am. I'm on a date with a devastating woman who bought a camera and publicly claimed me before noon. Her mouth softened behind the lens. Click. That one too, she murmured. I leaned back against the railing. How many prints am I getting? 1. Ruthless. Art requires boundaries. Does art require lunch? Art requires dessert. I laughed and she caught that too. Click. Then she lowered the camera slowly. For a moment, the only sound was the creek below us. I used to think wanting more made me selfish, she said. I straightened. Claire looked down at the camera in her hands. More attention, more tenderness. More than a marriage where I was useful and a motherhood where I was expected to be endlessly available. I thought, if I asked for anything, it meant I hadn't been grateful enough. You were allowed to want more. I know that today. Her eyes lifted to mine. Because of you. I crossed the bridge to her. Not because of me, I said. I didn't put that want in you. I just happened to be standing close when you finally stopped apologizing for it. She smiled, but tears filled her eyes. You have a very inconvenient way of saying exactly the right thing. I've been practicing on lumber, very emotionally receptive, Pine. She laughed through the tears. Then she set the camera carefully on the railing, stepped into me, and wrapped her arms around my waist. No hesitation, no apology. I held her, my cheek against her hair, while leaves drifted down around us. I don't know what happens next, she whispered. Good. She pulled back. Good? If we knew, we'd start trying to manage it. I don't want to manage you, Claire. What do you want? You. Her breath caught, not as a rescue, not as revenge, not as some belated correction to a past that had bruised us both, just her. I want Sunday mornings with your terrible coffee, I said. I want to build shelves for your photographs and complain when you take pictures of me without warning. I want to be the man you call because you want me there, not because you have nowhere else to go. Her tears spilled over. And if Lauren hates us, she asked, then we give her time. And if she never understands, then we still don't lie. Claire touched my face. I love my daughter, she said. I know. But I am not giving her my life as an apology. I covered her hand with mine. Good. She looked at me for a long moment, then she said, I'm falling in love with you, Mason. The world went still. The bridge, the creek, the red leaves, her camera waiting beside us. Everything narrowed to Claire's face and those words I had no right to need and every reason to believe. I kissed her softly first, then not softly. Her hand slid into my hair and she kissed me back like a woman stepping out of a locked room into sunlight. When we broke apart, I rested my forehead against hers. "I'm already there," I said. She closed her eyes. Behind us, her phone buzzed once. We both looked at it. Then Claire reached over, turned it off, and smiled. "Dessert," she said. "Yes, ma'am." She pointed at me. "Careful. I live dangerously now." 6 months later, there were 3 framed photographs hanging in my hallway. One was the creek beneath the bridge. One was my hand holding Claire's, both of us out of focus except our fingers. And one was the picture she had taken in the camera shop, the one where she said I looked unguarded. She had been right. By then, Claire had her own small photography website, 2 paying clients, and a habit of leaving lens caps in my truck. I had built her a work table by the window in my dining room because she said the light there made ordinary things look forgiven. Lauren did not forgive us quickly. For a while, she didn't call at all. Then, one Sunday afternoon, she came by with a box of old photographs Claire had left in her garage. She stood in my doorway, stiff and pale, and looked past me at her mother laughing in the dining room with sawdust on her sleeve and a camera strap around her neck. Lauren's eyes filled. "I don't know how to be okay with this," she said. Claire came to the door. "You don't have to be okay today," she told her, "but I won't be ashamed." Lauren nodded, like that hurt and helped at the same time. She didn't stay long, but before she left, she looked at me. "Are you happy?" she asked. I glanced at Claire. She was nervous, brave. Mine in no legal or possessive sense, but in the way people belong to each other when they keep choosing. "Yes," I said. "I am." Lauren swallowed. "Good." It wasn't a blessing, but it was a beginning. Evan sent 2 more messages. Claire blocked him after the second one, then took a self-portrait in my bathroom mirror, wearing my flannel shirt and red lipstick. She titled it Available Light. I kept a print in my workshop. A year after that night, Claire moved in. Not because she needed a place to stay, because she wanted our place to be the same place. On the first evening, she stood on my porch with 3 suitcases, 2 cameras, and a basil plant she insisted was emotionally delicate. I opened the door and said, "I didn't know where else to go." She gave me a look. "If you make that joke every year, I will leave you." "No, you won't." "No," she agreed, stepping into my arms. "I won't." We never became easy. People stared sometimes. A few whispered. Lauren needed time, and we gave it to her. Some holidays were awkward. Some conversations hurt. But every morning, Claire chose her life out loud. And every night, I chose her right back. The last photograph she took that first year was on the porch where she had once stood soaked and shaking at 11 p.m. She set the timer, ran back to me laughing, and I caught her around the waist just as the shutter clicked. In the picture, the porch light glows gold behind us. Her face is turned up to mine. My hand is in her hair. We are both laughing like we got away with something. Maybe we did. Not scandal, not betrayal. Something rarer. A second chance that knocked softly late at night and waited to see if I would open the door. What would you have done if your ex's mother showed up at your door at 11 p.m. and whispered that she had nowhere else to go? Have you ever experienced something even close to that? An unexpected knock, an old connection, a choice that changed everything? Tell your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.